And we're back to the show, and it is that time of the year. The NBA season is over, and it looks like right now is going to be a great time to talk about everything that went on in the NBA. But first, we need to talk about what's going on with the NBA playoffs, and who better to break it down with me than my good friend? He is our NBA man in the know. It's Anthony Barbarin. How's it going, my friend?
It's going well. It's going
Uh,
well. Enjoyed the NBA season all the way through. Ready to talk about it.
Absolutely. And your Clippers still ended up better than mine, although we're both, again, on the outside looking in.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some. Those are the breaks, I guess.
This is true. This is true. Free agency for us. I think that's the next couple of
Yeah.
years we'll be looking forward to. But we're here to break down all the stuff that's going on in the NBA. It is the postseason, and it has arrived with a vengeance. A great season has, obviously everything's going on with the NBA and the playoffs, and so much excitement up ahead. We're going to break it down right now with the Western Conference real quick. We've got Houston versus Minnesota, Golden State versus San Antonio, Portland versus New Orleans, Oklahoma City, and Utah. These are 8 outstanding teams, any one of which can go a long way in the playoffs. I'm going to start off with my picks. I'm going to go in. I'm going to go with Houston, Golden State. Let's go with Portland and then Utah. I'm going to go with those 4 teams matching up with each other, leading into a Golden State versus Houston matchup, and Golden State coming out of it, a Golden State ending up coming out of the West. Who are your picks to come out of the Western Conference, and not only in the first rounds, but who will be your pick to come out as a whole in the Western Conference?
Like you said, I have Houston over Minnesota. I have the Warriors. Um, I have the Blazers, and I'm gonna go with Oklahoma City beating Utah. Um, I think the Warriors and the Rockets will meet up in the Western Conference Finals. Um, However, I got the Warriors coming out. I think by then Steph will be back. They'll be healthy. Um, they don't have. I think the Rockets have a bit of a harder road, so they'll be a little more warm. And so I think that yeah, we'll see the Warriors representing the Western Conference.
I just, when it comes down to it, no matter how good the no matter how good a season the Rockets have had, the Warriors, when all 4 of the magical players are there for them, they are just so tough to beat. And it's even in the Western Conference. I think the finals, a lot of people will think the NBA finals will actually be the Western Conference finals matchup, which most likely will be the Houston Rockets for the Golden State Warriors. But those are some great picks indeed. A little bit of variance from mine, but again, it all leads into Houston versus Golden State. Those two teams seem to be well above and beyond as far as the Western Conference is concerned, even though it is loaded. The Eastern Conference has got a lot of solid teams as well. A lot of teams with some promise, and a lot of teams that are still overcoming some injury woes as well. We've got Toronto matching up against Washington, Boston matching up against Milwaukee, Philadelphia versus Miami, Cleveland versus Indiana. And I'll tell you right now, I think there's some good matchups there. I've got Toronto, Boston, Philadelphia, and Cleveland coming out of that first round matchups, heading into a Cleveland Boston matchup, maybe even Philadelphia. But I think right now I'm going to, if Joel Embiid comes back, it could create quite an issue. So, you know what? I'm going to go with Cleveland and Philadelphia. If Joel Embiid comes back strong, that will be your Eastern Conference Finals matchup. And I do think Cleveland will head back to the NBA Finals once again. As an up and down season, it looks like LeBron will get back to the finals, in my opinion. Who do you think is going to come out in the East? Is Toronto that strong of a team, and do you think they're going to go ahead a long way in the Eastern Conference playoffs?
I like Toronto. I think Toronto is set up to go deep and be well. But I still like you. I have Cleveland coming out. They have the best player in the world. They have 2 legitimate all-star players who have championship experience. And I just think when it comes to the playoffs, they're gonna ratchet it up just enough. And then they'll get back to the NBA championship and represent the Eastern Conference. But
And Kyrie Irving being hurt for Boston doesn't hurt either.
No, it doesn't hurt. I didn't think they had enough to beat them even with him. Not in a playoff setting, but it really hurts them. I am looking forward to that series, that first round series between them and Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee, in all honesty, should be able to beat them. But I think the Brad Stevens factor is such a huge advantage for them that it won't probably be that close. I think 6 games at the most.
So you have Toronto, Cleveland, Boston, and who else? As far as the Philadelphia series, who do you think is going to go out between Philadelphia and Miami and meet up in as far as in the next round?
I have the Sixers. I think if Deion Waiters was still around, then it'd be a little closer. I like him as a closer for that team, but the way Philadelphia is rolling right now, I think they're going into the playoffs with monumental momentum, and that's gonna help carry them past, at least in the first round, past their inexperience.
So who leads up as far as the Eastern Conference Final is concerned?
I think it'll end up being. It looks like to me it'll be the Sixers and the Cavs, but I wouldn't be surprised if no, I think it'll be the Sixers and the Cavs. I was gonna say Boston, but they just don't have enough. If they meet you up with the Sixers, especially if Joel Embiid comes back, I think it'll be the Sixers and the Cavs.
He'll be so excited when he comes back. He'll have so much energy, and I think he'll give a lift to the Sixers. If they get by Miami, they will pose a problem for any other team out there. I think they won't have enough experience to surpass the Cleveland Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I do think they'll give them a great test. But I think for both of us, it comes down to Golden State versus Cleveland. Wow, what a shock. I've never seen that matchup before in the NBA Finals, but well, of course, yes, we have the past few years, but it looks like it's going to be another great matchup again. After such a turbulent season for LeBron, he is now here with a better supporting cast than what he started out the season with. Again, going against, hopefully around that time, a healthy quartet of the Golden State Warriors. I still think when it comes all down to it, you have 4 All-Stars going up against 1 All-Star. Okay, I'm sorry, going up against 2 All-Stars if you include Kevin Love as well. I think that's just still too much, no matter how good the supporting cast is for Cleveland. And I think in this time, again, it will be another easy walk-away series for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I agree. Barring any of their big 3 being out, honestly, barring anybody, as long as Steph is there and most of their players are healthy, I think Cleveland will have a very hard time beating them in a 7-game series. I think Golden State will end up winning another championship. However, if I will say this, if Steph is not back healthy and ready before they meet Houston, I think Houston will ultimately be the ones in the finals. But if Golden State is fully healthy, I think they end up with the whole thing.
I agree with you on that. Once again, it is some great talk from the NBA with our good friend, Anthony Barbarin. If you want to reach out to Anthony and ask him questions on the NBA scene, just give us a shout out. Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Humanica Media Game Source, or Inside Sports on Facebook and Twitter. We'll be sure to get him that message, and he'll be glad to answer it for you as well. I want to talk now, since the season is over. There's a lot of great postseason awards that we can discuss. First off, one of my favorites, because it has one of my favorite players now involved with it. It's the Rookie of the Year. We've got a lot of great rookies that came out. I think this was a much a far superior class of rookies than we had last year. Sorry, no disrespect to any of those that were out there, but since Joel Embiid was injured for most of the season, really you can't gauge it as a very good season for rookies last year. So this was a much better year for rookies. We had so many dominant rookies that were out there. Lauri Markkanen, Kyle Kuzma, obviously Tatum from Boston as well. And then, of course, you had the big two that did so well this season, Ben Simmons from Philadelphia, and also as well you had Donovan Mitchell from Utah. After all said and done, those were my top 5 picks. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a surprise, even though Ben Simmons, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead. It's a toss-up because Donovan Mitchell did so well and was the primary reason for Utah's great push to a playoff spot when we all thought they were going to fall after Gordon Hayward. But 15 wins in a row, my friend. Or was it 16? I think 16 wins to close out the season. Ben Simmons basically took the team on his back, averaged just virtually a triple-double. Even with Joel Embiid out of the lineup, they won all those games and skyrocketed to the 3rd place team in the Eastern Conference. So that being said, I think I'm going to still give it to Ben Simmons, but just by a hair. I think it's one of the closest races out there. What are your thoughts on the Rookie of the Year? There were a lot of great rookies this year, and I think that shows a lot of promise going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was a great rookie class. I was one of the people who said going into the draft that my first pick would have been Jason Tatum. I thought he was the best player coming out. Ben Simmons obviously was last year, and he missed all of last year. He come back this year. I did not see this from Donovan Mitchell at all. I didn't. There was no way I thought he would be this kind of a player.
No, nor did I, or Kyle Kuzma for that matter.
Right, as well. Kyle Kuzma was a huge surprise. Although, if you talk summer league, I wasn't surprised from what I saw from him in the summer league. I was surprised even from what I saw summer wise what we got from Donovan Mitchell.
Well, you know, but then again, the summer league, you and I have seen many years prior that can be a little bit of fool's gold as well.
Absolutely.
So a lot of players that play well in the summer league really cannot translate into the NBA level. But fortunately for both those teams, that was the case.
Right. But Donovan Mitchell was amazing. I mean, 20 points a game. He took over the lead of that team, and he got them into the playoffs. And he's been spectacular. He doesn't, if you watch him play, does not look like a rookie in the least. And I think he's going to be an exciting player for Utah for years to come. And especially, like you said, after losing Gordon Hayward the way they did and making the trades that they made to kind of jettison some of the players that they did in the middle of the season. And after that, to take off the way they did. Donovan Mitchell was great. But I'm with you. In my eyes, the Rookie of the Year is Ben Simmons.
I think that closing March did it. I really think that winning so many games in a row without Joel Embiid really just pushed it over the top. He was ahead for most of the season. Then the big surge by Utah gave Donovan Mitchell all that momentum. But closing out the season with 16 wins in a row, just you got it. Right. Yeah.
And for me, I kind of always, I like Donovan Mitchell. As I just said, I kind of always had Ben Simmons as my Rookie of the Year. When I'm watching the rebounds, the assists, the triple double, the things he's doing on a night in, night out basis, that is basically whatever is needed, but at such a high level. He is special, and you can see it. He's going to be a special player. And
if he can ever find a jump shot, I'm telling you, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. And even if he doesn't, I think there's an aspect of intelligence to him knowing what he can and cannot do and not trying to be what he thinks people are going to want him to be and just do what he does well. I think at some point he'll find more of a jump shot, but his ability to to know what he's great at and to stick to that makes him, in my opinion, that much better. And like you said, for him to have a player next to him as good as Joel Embiid is and as talented as he is, to go out and to, run off the amount of games that they ran off to close out the season and to move into the top three, pretty much, I think, solidified him being the Rookie of the Year.
Couldn't agree with you more. And those are some very, very, definitive words, and very, very impressive indeed as far as your thoughts on that. I cannot agree with you more. He's just, over that course of time, Ben Simmons just totally dominated for the last couple weeks of the season, and definitely deserves the award. But, if somebody were to choose Donovan Mitchell, I couldn't really argue with them either. So definitely it's a great situation to have for both those teams. Defensive Player of the Year. With the Defensive Player of the Year, there are a couple of factors. I know if you look at it from a statistical standpoint, you would have to lean towards maybe a Joel Embiid or even a Rudy Gobert, but it's hard to look at them sometimes in the fact that both of them had significant injuries and took significant time off. There are some other players in play. Kevin Durant obviously was really vocal in his aspirations to become the Defensive Player of the Year, and others as well that are really just good defenders that help their team win games with their defense. I think when it comes down to it, Rudy Gobert was a big enough difference for the Utah Jazz. When he came back, that started their push towards a playoff run. And I just think at this point in time that Rudy Gobert played just enough to get that award for me, because I truly think he is right now the best defensive player in the NBA.
Yeah, like you said, there were a number of guys who have been really, really good defensively this year. The problem with a lot of these guys is that their individual defense, as good as it has been, has not translated into complete team defense. And I think that's probably why I would go with Rudy Gobert, because when he's there, he transforms his team's complete defense. And you can see the difference. The difference not only past the eye test, but even the numbers make a big enough jump. But there's guys like Kevin Durant, individual numbers wise, with his blocks and his steals was great. Anthony Davis is another one who, he'll get you, almost 2 steals. He'll get you 2 blocks every game. And so there's other guys, and there's perimeter guys. Luke Bamute for me, for Houston. The transformation that, in my opinion, that he brought to that team to make them a better defensive team overall for the course of the year compared to last year is something that I take into account. But I agree with you. I think Rudy Gobert is Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Excellent thoughts indeed. Once again, it's our man in the know when it comes to the NBA. It's Anthony Barbarin. Most improved player, I think at this point in time, if someone tells me someone other than Victor Oladipo, I would have to say they're crazy, because I don't think anybody expected this out of Victor Oladipo going over to Indiana, which we all just kind of laughed at that trade of him and Sabonis being traded to there for Paul George, and thought, man, Indiana's going to stink. Their record's going to be awful. And look what happened. Because of the way that Victor Oladipo played and his great improvement, they became a playoff team, and they're someone to reckon with in the Eastern Conference now for the foreseeable future because of his outstanding improvement. What are your thoughts on the most improved player, Anthony? And is there somebody else I should be looking at instead of him?
There is one person that I'm going to throw out there. I do think Victor Oladipo is the most improved player this year. I think not only because of his individual numbers, but also because of his impact on his team from, again, what we thought they were going to be after losing Paul George to still being a playoff team, and not only a playoff team, but the 5th seed. So I think Victor Oladipo is the most improved player. But my dark horse candidate that I'm going to throw out there is somebody who I think will win a different award this year, and that's Lou Williams. I think he this year career high in points, career high in assists, and that's all off the bench. So in limited minutes. So I think he's another player who, if you look at the course of his career and you look at this year, is you can the improvement in his game. I think is major. But I agree with you also. I think Victor Oladipo and what he did for Indiana makes him most improved player.
I think he should be the sixth man of the year. Whether or not he does get it over Eric Gordon, because Eric Gordon was the sixth man on the team with the best record in the NBA, that's another thing to be seen. But I do think that Lou Williams was the heart and soul of the LA Clippers this year, and definitely he has improved play. Even he's above the age of 30, so there should be no way he's improving in his game. But sure enough, he found another level to play at, even better than when he was with the Lakers, when he was with Toronto, when he was with Houston, when he was with all those other teams. He's found a different level, and at times he willed the Clippers into a playoff contention where, in fact, they were actually one of the top 8 teams at various points of time in the latter part of the season. So definitely, I agree with you. He should. I'm sorry. Definitely, I agree with you. I agree with you that Lou Williams is definitely a approved player for this year. But I at this point in time, I got to go with Oladipo, and I just think that at this point in time, it might be a closer race than I think. But yeah, you're right. Definitely, Lou Williams is a very, very good pick, and I think he should be the sixth man of the year at the very least.
Completely agree.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I said I completely agree. I think Victor Oladipo is most improved.
Yeah, it's amazing what everybody was laughing at Kevin Pritchard. We were laughing at Kevin Pritchard at that trade. It's definitely a good things worked out with it. And he knew something not a lot of other people knew, and that's probably why he's the GM. So we'll give him props on that, and hopefully good things for Indiana going forward. One of the things I want to go ahead and break down is the Coach of the Year, and this is also a hotly contested award as far as a lot of people are eligible for it. You've got Brad Stevens, you got Nate McMillan, you've got obviously Mike D'Antoni, you've got Dwayne Casey in Toronto. You've got so many other great coaches out there. I think I'm going to go with a little bit of a different choice. I think I'm going to go with Dwayne Casey from Toronto, because no one expected Toronto to be at the level that they were. No one expected them to be the number 1 seed out of the East. And no one thought that they could go ahead and change their team, even though their 2 main players were already there. And he changed the style of the team and a little bit better approach to as far as what they were doing. And it paid off with a successful season and a number 1 seed for the first time, and hopefully a great playoff for them, because they're so supportive of the Raptors in the Toronto area. What coach stands out to you? Quinn Snyder from the Jazz is another choice, and Terry Stotts from Portland. There's so many great choices. Which coach stood out to you as far as being the Coach of the Year? Brett Brown from the Sixers. The list can go on and on.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They're this year more than any other year, I think, in a long time. You get a lot of coaches who are worthy of an NBA Coach of the Year. Guys like you said, Quinn Snyder. Guys who I think aren't getting recognition, who I'd like to say is and I think his absence kind of took it away from him a little bit. Ty Lue, for his team to win 1 less game than they did last year. With the subtraction of Kyrie Irving, with the total changeover in the middle of the season of, to more than half their roster. I think there's a testament to his ability as a coach. Doc Rivers, I don't think any team this year had more injuries than his team had. The guy they that they spent $60 million on played, I think, 18 games. They traded their franchise player away, and they still won, 42 games. There are a lot of people who have great seasons. My pick, I think I'm gonna go with, and it's it's kind of tough because even now I'm jumping back and forth between, I don't know, maybe him, maybe this guy, maybe that guy. Um, oh my goodness! All of a sudden I'm going blank on the name.
That's okay. No worries.
um. Oh man, I just lost it. I had it right there, and
Well, like I said, you have Terry Stotts from Portland. You have Quinn Snyder from Utah. I picked Dwayne Casey from Toronto. You also had Brett Brown from Philadelphia. You also had, obviously Mike D'Antoni from Houston, who guided his team to the best record in the NBA overall. A lot of great picks out there. Quinn Snyder from Utah, like I mentioned. There's a lot of great teams. Nate McMillan from Indiana. He actually also did a great job in bringing Indiana into a playoff spot as well.
yeah, and I think that's who I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go with Nate McMillan. He again, it's kind of like the same thing when you with Victor Oladipo. Nobody had any idea that team was going to be what it was. And if you have to give credit to Victor Oladipo for helping that team to the level that it got, I think you also have to give Nate McMillan credit because the coaching has a lot to do with it. And I think for him to get that out of Victor Oladipo and the rest of those players on a nightly basis, for them to get the wins that they got, I think he's my choice.
That's definitely a great choice. You can't argue with that. And you and I would both joke in the past about Nate McMillan being not the coach for this type of game that's right now in the NBA with the pace and space, fast pace, whatnot, because he was always associated with a slow down team, a team that wouldn't go very fast, would be careful, would be meticulous, would take 17 to 22 seconds off the shot clock before taking a shot. And look at him. He transformed his team into, again, another pace and space, up-tempo team, and definitely was the better for it because he realized that's what his contingent of players were best and were suited best for, and definitely was a great choice for Coach of the Year. I can't argue with that one as well. There's just so a lot of great choices indeed for Coach of the Year, and definitely you can't go wrong with at least 10 great options out there for Coach of the Year. Even like you said, coaches that didn't even make the playoffs, like Doc Rivers, who did an outstanding job. And at one time, they had a horrible record and had numerous injuries, and it looked really bleak for the Clippers. And definitely due to his inspiration and well thought out plan, he definitely brought them back to almost a playoff spot as well. So yeah, definitely some great ideas out there for Coach of the Year. Now we're going to go ahead and touch on an all-NBA team of the 5 players you think are the best choices for the all-NBA team. For me, it starts off with at the guards. We're going to go with James Harden and Damian Lillard. I think those 2 players from the guard position have affected the game the most when Steph Curry is not in the lineup. And I will say that with a kind of asterisk because I don't think Steph Curry played enough games, but when he was playing, he was at a level that I think was at or near an MVP level. I will say for my forwards, I think I'm going to go with LeBron James. How can you not? Single-handedly did a great job for the team that he was playing for, even though he had his ups and downs. Didn't do so great on the defensive end, but from an offensive standpoint, looks just as good as ever, even at 34 years of age. Also going to go with, as a forward, I think I'm going to go with, see, that's that second forward slot is always getting me right now. I think I'm going to have to go. I'm going to go with Durant. I think I'm going to go with Kevin Durant. I think he had a good enough season where it was good enough for me as far as being able to to be able to be at that platform at the level of being one of the best and NBA players. Although it wasn't, I think, as great as I or a lot of other people hoped it would be, it still is good enough to be one of the 5 best players that are out there. And as my main man in the middle, that would probably be Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, even after Boogie Cousins' injury, still willed his team to a playoff spot and produced some gaudy and outstanding numbers. So your thoughts on an NBA team? Like I said, if you choose Durant off the team, I wouldn't argue with you. If you choose Dillard off the team, I wouldn't argue with you. But I think I'm pretty set when it comes to LeBron, Anthony Davis, and also James Harden as well.
And you're right. I have those 3 in there as locks. And most of the year I had Damian Lillard right there. And it may have been stat padding or stat chasing, but for Westbrook to average a triple-double for the 2nd straight year, I have to put him at the first team.
Although you gotta give some credit to those lovely teammates of his that would clear out of the way so he could get all those rebounds.
Absolutely, they get a credit. But again, for him to even be within reach with 3 games to go is just a testament to how remarkable a player he is.
This is true. This is true. In 2 years, averaging a triple-double, it's a feat unlike any other. So whether or not people call him, a stat, whether people call it stat hoarding or whatever you want to call it, whether it's being selfish or whatnot, you cannot deny it is truly an outstanding feat to do it 2 years in a row.
Right. LeBron is in there definitely. James Harden as well. Anthony Davis. And for me, looking at I feel like if I'm gonna give him Defensive Player of the Year, then I have to put him in there. So I would move Anthony Davis to my 4 and Rudy Gobert to my 5.
See, I can't argue with that because, like I said, Kevin Durant had what most people would say would be a great year, but for him, it was like a pretty good year. But I was expecting Kevin Durant to be in an MVP level this year. Mm-hmm. He had always talked about how not only he was going to ramp up his offensive game, but also become a Defensive Player of the Year mentality. So I think that's the one area I would probably want to change the most. And if somebody wants to go Rudy Gobert or Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid or one of the other great players out there, I really can't argue a whole lot with that because Kevin Durant, even in what may be considered an quote unquote off year, is still pretty darn good, and a lot of teams would love to have him. So those are some great thoughts. Those are some great thoughts, Anthony, on your picks for the All NBA team. I definitely cannot argue with that. But it all leads into an MVP, my friend. And, I don't think there's any question who it should be, although I'm sorry, LeBron would actually question it. But, no matter how well his team is doing or no matter how not so well his team is doing, he would always question it.
Right.
I would probably have to go with James Harden. I think he's probably the most definitive choice of any of these picks that are out there. He just had an outstanding season. I mean, Chris Paul, him, and Capella, when they were on the floor together, the gaudy win percentage alone makes it a no-brainer, in my opinion. And just truly has developed his game where he's just so crafty and just so dangerous now. He's probably the most dangerous, prolific offensive weapon right now in the NBA, in my opinion. And definitely, I think at this point, the choice for the MVP. Your thoughts?
I'm gonna go with James Harden, but I'm gonna make a devil's advocate plea for LeBron. And this is just depending on how you look at it. The reason, if somebody were to choose LeBron, I could not be mad at them.
Because he's the world's best player. If you still ask me who's the best player in the world, I would have to still tell you LeBron. To me, if they came up with the prototype NBA athlete, my gosh, he checks off all the boxes better than anyone. But and don't get me wrong, he still had a great season. But yeah,
right. if and to me the deciding factor is the win, the difference in win. If they were within 5 games of each other, maybe even 6, 7 games within of each other, then I would give it to LeBron. But the fact that there's so much distance between them, one's got 65 wins, the other's got 50 wins. Because of that, I can't give it to him. But you look at LeBron's numbers, just what he did on the court. He shot 10% field goal percentage higher than James Harden. They shot the same from three. He more assists, more rebounds, and they changed almost his entire team in the middle of the season. And for him still to do what he did and to get that team where they are, um, for him to play and be there all 82 games this year, uh, and play the number of minutes that he played in his 15th season, I think is remarkable. So if somebody said, listen, I think he's the MVP, I couldn't argue with it. But in my opinion, James Harden is the MVP.
We'll just go ask Derrick Rose to give back one of his 2 MVPs that he might have not fully deserved and give it to LeBron to hopefully as a consolation prize. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding about that. Anybody who's a diehard Derrick Rose fan, I'm sorry about that. But I think that's probably a well-known fact at this point in time. It's like, in hindsight, maybe, well, and I'll let you fill in the blank on that one. But again, I'll tell you what, it's been great talking to you, my friend. He had great picks as far as who's going to head out and be the best of the bunch in the NBA playoffs. And also, he had some great thoughts as far as postseason awards. I'll tell you what, it's always great talking to you, my friend. And again, if anyone out there has a question for Anthony on the NBA, please shoot us a message or email us, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com, or also as well, we're on Facebook and Twitter at GameSource, Humanica Media, Inside Sports, and Pop Culture Cosmos. Any one of those, you can shoot us a message, and we'll be glad to talk some NBA and some of the round ball and hoops with you on that. Because right around the corner, my friend, it's the NBA draft, then summer league, and then it's free agency. The NBA is now a 10 to 11 month machine, and it is going strong and pretty much better than ever for the NBA.
Absolutely. They are in a very, very good position. I think they have caught up globally with what the NFL had done for many years, which was control the calendar. And I think they put their foothold in that same area, and they're a year-round league now.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, and it's always fun to talk to you about the NBA and what's going on with it. Once again, it is Anthony Barbarin. He is our man to know when it comes to the NBA. Anthony, it's always great having you on, and truly glad to have you a part of the pop.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, hold on. Sorry. All right. Sorry, phone. Anthony, once again, it is truly Anthony is one threw my rhythm off. Anthony is once again, it is great to have you on the show and great to have you a part of the Pop Culture Cosmos.
As always, thanks for having me. It's always a joy to come on, and I look forward to coming on next time.
You got it, my friend. Always great to have you a part of the Pop Culture Cosmos.